Malian. Today we're going to continue on the story of Ngundeng. We're going to be discussing about his prophethood. Last video we discussed about his adulthood, and the video before that we just discussed about his childhood. I know I made a playlist so y'all could watch those previous videos. Also made an introduction video about Ngundeng as well, about how some people put him in within Christianity. But yeah, I made a video upon that. So yeah, if you want to watch the previous videos, I'll put the link down below with the playlist. But currently right now we're going to discuss about his prophethood. So Ngundeng claimed to be an earth master because of his father Bung had assumed the office. In using Bung's name rather than Hoth, Ngundeng drew attention to his descendants from an active master. Certainly, meditation infused the power to bless the land, to make cultivation abundant, and the power to curse are mentioned by two of his grandsons as being Ngundeng's most significant activities as an earth master. Meditation, blessing, and cursing were also his most important activities as a prophet, involving the gift of life. But when Ngundeng arrived among the Lo, he was still only a minor earth master. The most renowned Lo master was a Dinka, Yot Yakong. So now we're going to discuss about his background, Yot Yakong. Yot Yakong came from a Dinka family adopted into the Jimem master lineage, coming originally from the east of the Lo, but joining Bek Choliath's cattle camp. It appears that both Yot and his brother Pakol was given leper skins by Lo, and well as being adopted into a Noor lineage of a masters. Yot is said to have come from a Dinka earth master family. As a master, he was inspired by flesh, and even today is remembered as a Kwereng, master of flesh. The spiritual virtue guided him in all knowing and speaking the truth, or one would say, when he spoke a thing, it came to be. In addition to owning two other family tutelary divinities, Yot also had magic. Yot combined a number of qualities that the Lo needed in a leader at that time. He came from outside Lo society. He was a Noor earth master who was also accepted as a Dinka earth master. The Noor preference for Dinka earth masters during this period is marked. Elevation of Dinka to position of Noor leadership recognized. At the same time that it facilitated the large-scale assimilation of Dinka into Noor society. Merchant companies of Zaraf established themselves on the Sobat sometime in the late 1860s or early 1870s. They used Yot's brother Pakol Nyakong as their agent in transporting cattle and slaves from the Zaraf to the Sobat. Pakol fell out with the slavers, after which he was never seen again. The slavers then began to deal directly with Yot, who was remembered to have assisted the Turuk to collect cattle tribute and raid the Dinka, but he did not raid other Noor. Yot continued to be remembered among the Lo as a man of great sanctity, and the extensive herd he had amassed came mostly from cattle given to him from mediating homicide cases, partly because of their distance from the rivers, and partly because of Yot's activities. The Lo were less effective by the slavers than the Gawar. Now, this section we're going to be speaking about his death. Ngundeng left the Jikang before the Egyptians' outpost of the Nasir was established in the 1874, and his arrival among the Lo appeared to have predate the coming of the slavers to Pul Turuk. He was living in the Juet during the time Yot dealt with the merchants and their soldiers. He was also in Juet when Yot was lured into Dinka country by the Nyareweng. Yeah, that word, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Yeah, that's a tough word. Yeah, let's continue. Held for ransom and then killed even after the ransom cattle were paid. Ngundeng was then becoming known as a man of divinity and is said to have warned Yot not to visit the Dinka Yuat's death occurred after the departure of the companies from the Bar el Zaraf in the 1874, and may have been vengeance for his assisting the slavers against the Dinka. Though he was killed by the Nyareng, other Dinka seem to have been in on the plot, just as they were involved in raids against the Lo at the time. Yuat was killed, so the Lo claim in manner of resembling the sacrifice of ox through suffocation. Yuat was killed. As spears could not pierce his body, sticks were shoved through his orifices until he died. Yuat's body was dismembered, and pieces of it were boiled and burned in a Muat ceremony aimed against the Lo. Then followed a period of raids, which resulted in a series of Dinka defeats. The Lo attacked the Nyareng separately, but it was Ngundeng who organized the most successful defense against the Dinka aggression, and it is Ngundeng who is credited with bringing this period of violence to an end. The Lo were attacked towards the end of 1878 by a coalition of Dinka and the Garar, led by a Dinka stranger named Deng Chier, who claimed to be a prophet of Deng. Deng Chier was much of a challenge to establish local authorities as to the Lo. Ngundeng first avoided a fight, but then arranged an ambush at the Lo cattle camps around Pading on the Khor Fuluth. Lured into thinking the Lo herds were undefeated, the raiders were attacked and pushed back into the river, where they were speared like fish. Not only did Ngundeng gain wide acceptance as a prophet of Deng, but his victory led directly to the rise of Deng Laka, to overthrow Nyara Mir among the Garwar, and then the breakup of many Dinka groups. Victory was a tribute to Deng, and especially to Ngundeng's sacrifice of an ox at the beginning of the battle. In the past, Nur had fought with the aid of clan divinity, but Deng was no Nur clan divinity. Ngundeng claimed that Deng was a divinity for all people, and with Pading, he began to offer proof that he was so. His victory helped to establish Ngundeng's reputation as a peacemaker, for the battle was fought in self-defense and not for gain, and it reinforced the idea that through Ngundeng, Deng could control both life and death. It demonstrated the prophet's gift of life and helped to establish Deng's primacy over all the divinities. The greatest gift of divinity is the gift of life, and it was after the ancestors, and it was after the creator, protectors, and the controllers of life that prophets established themselves as men of divinity. Through their blessings and prayers, they attempted to cure the sick, ensure the fertility of the women and cows, and secure the abundance of crops. As the givers of life, they could also be the takers of life. Their curse was supposed to carry the power of death, and their sacrifices in war could destroy their enemies. Life and death alike are controlled by divinity, and men of sanctity, or men who work with magic, are both deemed able to manipulate life and death through the aid of a divinity or a lower power. But the curse of an earthmaster or the spell of a magician generally affects individuals, not whole groups. In providing proof of a strong ability, one that affects entire communities, the prophets convinced people that their strength was greater than that of either the masters or the magicians. In doing so, the prophets associated themselves with divinity above. Ngundeng is often said to have demonstrated his life-controlling powers through his ability to kill. At the first sacrifice to Deng, some dogs were supposed to have died after eating the meat of the sacrificial victim. Their bodies were left out in the sun to rot all day, and in the cool of the evening, Ngundeng struck each dog's corpse with a bundle of grass, resurrecting them all. Ngundeng was also credited with the power of resurrection at the Battle of Pading. All successful prophets became known for ability to kill by words or thoughts, and Ngundeng was especially famous for this. The deaths of the children of the childhood bully and the maternal cousin who denied him for ribs are often cited as early examples of Ngundeng, even if he had not uttered a specific threat. After he became a prophet, deaths of any enemies or person who had refused his demands were also attributed to Ngundeng, even if he had not uttered any specific threat. This action is reminiscent of an evil eye, or involuntary witchcraft, peth, an inherent trait which acts indiscriminately, endowing its owners with the ability to harm or kill merely by looking at a person. Peth is also associated with the Wiu, the clan divinity of the god Gankir of Jikane. Ngundeng frequently involved Wiu in his songs and likened himself to a man with Peth in the following songs, which announce Ngundeng's Peth will not weaken. Ngundeng Bong's Peth will not weaken, for he blew his pipe, going Wiu, and the master's eyes lifted up the Baire. Though Ngundeng proclaimed his dangerous nature by direct comparison with Peth, one difference was that while a person with Peth could not control the harm he did, Ngundeng could. He was able to direct his spiritual strength against specific targets. The Lo have drawn attention to this in another way by claiming that Ngundeng was able to kill animals at sacrifices merely by shaking his baton, dang, or his pipe at them. The spiritual ability to kill was but one aspect of controlling life, and Ngundeng went beyond those who cursed or conjured by creating life as well. The divinity Dang was already known for its life-giving qualities, being associated with rain, with its connotations of cool weather, the revival of grass and cattle, the procreation of children, and the end of the deadly dry period. Ngundeng had already recourse to Dang to improve the fertility of women. They also came to know Dang through the shrine at Luangdang, where the divinity was appealed to for grain and for the protection of cultivation through the control of rain and floods. Dang was also known for taking people into the bushes and returning them safely, as it had done with Ngundeng. Ngundeng reinforced these life-giving associations with Dang. He told the Nur that his divinity came the direction of the north wind, which brings coolness. The ox name he adopted after his seizure, Denkur, is a white ox with black eyes, calling to mind the black and white of rain clouds. And it was by this name that he was commonly known throughout the rest of his life. Just as Dang is supposed to have made his mother fertile, so Ngundeng gained a reputation for making barren women fruitful. Supplication would bring an ox, which Ngundeng sacrificed to Dang. He would then anoint the woman's stomach with either butter or his own spittle, both being fluid, considered to have life-giving properties. This will be accompanied by a blessing on the child about to be conceived in the form of a prophecy about its character. It would be a good cultivator. It would be talkative, etc., etc. Sometimes even announcing an unborn child's name. Ngundeng was acknowledged as the spiritual father of the children born by his blessing. Such cures were usually administered to individual supplicants, but Ngundeng is further credited with having cured an entire generation of infertile women. Mothers of Dangonga, age set, in both Lo and Jikane were supposed to suffer mass barrenness until they sought Ngundeng's help. He sacrificed a white ox for them all, and children who were born and subsequently marked in the Dangonga age set were also known as the children of the white ox. It was by such widespread application of his divinity to individual and personal problems that Ngundeng established and maintained his claim to spiritual primacy, both within and beyond Lo society. He treated women from Lo, Jikane, Thiang, Lak, Western Nur, and Gawar, even including a wife of the prophet Deng Lakak. Ngundeng gained credit as a provider and protector of life. The ill and the infertile came to him to be cured by his sacrifices. His reputation was also considerably enhanced by his response to the twin epidemics of smallpox and rinderpest, which entered Nur country from Ethiopia in about 1888 to 1889. He is said to have foreseen these diseases and went out to meet them in the bushes, sacrificing dozens of oxen in front of the path of the plagues, leaving them to rot untouched, and sacrificing more cattle in his village, where the meat of the sacrificial animal was eaten. Both the Jikane and Lo lost many cattle to rinderpest, the older generation dying in the subsequent famine. But the smallpox appeared to have been halted and did not afflict the Lo again until the early 1920s. These two related epidemics were extraordinary occurrence, and Ngundeng adopted an extraordinary method of mass sacrifice to meet them. To prevent any of these diseases and epidemics, he then built his famous mound in which all diseases and bad things were buried. As you see there, that's how his mountain did look like in the past, until, you know, the British, they blew it up. That's the aftermath of the picture when they blew it up. But yeah, we no longer have that mountain no more, and sucks. But if you do want to continue on reading this, you can find this on Amazon. You can order one on Amazon. It's called The Nur Prophets. This is how the book does look like. You know, the side part does say Nur Prophets, as you can